Hello, heroines, and welcome back to yet another episode of Let's Talk with Alex. Guess I don't know. I don't have a title for
Is
this,
that the official
so
name? Okay. All right, cool.
it's Tea Time with Alex. How's that? I think it's a good
Yes,
title.
fabulous. Okay, that's a good time.
So today I just wanted to bring Iena on board because she has a unique story. I think a unique perspective, and I thought it would be helpful in your journey of transition to really hear somebody else's perspective who's lived it and who's now thriving. So, Aina, welcome.
Hey, I'm so glad to be here. Thank you so much, Alex.
No, my pleasure. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Who I am. I'm an internationally known psychic and healer and life coach with 27 years experience. And in this space, it would be relevant. I help female spiritual entrepreneurs move into multi-six-figure income.
Hey, nice. That's a mouthful. No, but it's we all have kind of like our secret sauce and what we do to support the world and to support the good energy in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to support entrepreneurs is important because I think about when I got divorced. Um, I never in a million years thought that I would ever own my own business.
Mm.
I was a corporate girl through and through. I joined my
Mm-hmm.
first company and I said, I'm going to die here, right? I'm going to retire from here.
Yeah, yeah,
So it's every piece is important. Um,
absolutely.
so so how did you get started doing what you're doing? Because um, I know some women may be looking for something to do after their divorce, or other women may already have something going that they need to kind of put on fast
Right,
track.
right.
And some may not know where to go from here. So tell us a little bit about your story.
Okay. Yeah, sure. So when I got divorced, I was actually a stay-at-home mom and I had been a stay-at-home mom for 10 years. I had an Usui Reiki certification. I was an interfaith minister. I was doing the things, but it was a side gig because I was the mom, and that was really my primary role in the relationship. And then suddenly I was the mom, I was the dad, I was the breadwinner, and I was also homeschooling both of my children at the time as well. Things shifted for us very quickly. I found myself, we were living in Hawaii at the time. I found myself living back with friends and family in Pennsylvania. So I literally sold my car at the airport, which I found out later is a federal offense. Shh. And I didn't know that. I was, I had to pay for my kids and I to get to
This is like
Pennsylvania.
this random rule.
It was very random, and I was just like, okay. Anyway, yeah. And we each had a bag, and I had one cat with me, and we went to Pennsylvania, and then it was like, shit, now what? Because I'm like, okay, so I've been a stay-at-home mom for 10 years. Like, who's gonna hire me? And I did. Well, I went through a deep depression, as most people probably do, and literally was kind of like in freeze response for a while. And finally, my family was like, you need to get off your butt and, like, do some stuff. So I ended up working, in addition to homeschooling my kids, I had several jobs. I think I had three jobs, homeschooled my kids. And I also was still doing some healing stuff on the side. I started like doing sessions and teaching classes and all the things. But I got a very staunch reminder very quickly that, when you work for someone else, you're never going to get paid what you're worth. And it was a scramble, and I was constantly trying to pick up more hours. And I started my own cleaning business too, because I figured if I'm working for myself, so then there's more stuff I'm doing to try to be the breadwinner, because suddenly, I had, I don't know if you know how much boys eat, but the children, they needed nourishment, and I wasn't I wasn't mad at them for that, but it was just overwhelming for me, all the things that needed to be done. And at some point I was like, this is not working for me. I can't live like this. I can't work 70 plus hours a week and still be present for people and be present for my kids. And there were many days that my kids would be like, hey mom, I need help, with my homework. After I got home from working all the jobs and I had one eye open and I was like, just hold it until the weekend. Just keep doing all your work and then I'll look at it on the week. I could hardly function. That's no way to live. But I was still in shock. I was still healing. And at some point I realized, yeah, well, we need to change this. This needs to stop. Does that answer your question, Alex?
Yeah, actually it does. And it prompts me to ask you, what was it? Was there a specific moment? Did something happen that got you out of that funk and made you realize something's got to change? Or was it just a natural progression of your healing?
I think it was part of a natural progression. I think also I wanted better for myself and my kids, and I realized that despite what the Disney movies tell us, no one's coming to save us, as women. The white knight is not coming, and that was the last thing I was looking for. But I needed to find a new way to save myself, something that was more sustainable and more in alignment with who I am. Don't get me wrong, all the other jobs that I did them well. People, I had a great work ethic. However, that's not how I wanted to live my life. And it's also not the example I wanted to set for my children of like, working until you're exhausted and you can hardly keep your eyes open at home and like, no. So yeah, it was, I would say, natural progression. The more I healed, the more I realized that I was worth more. I was worthy of more, and I deserve to be happy and to have a joy-filled life, including the work that I did.
So I remember when I left my marriage,
Uh-huh.
I threw myself into my work. Like I was working crazy, crazy hours, right? And it took me a while to get out of that. So if there's somebody that's listening right now that is doing that, what would you say to get them to stop and think about what they're doing?
That is a great question. I think if we take a few moments and really just put our hands on our hearts and really breathe and ask ourselves, is this really what I want? Is this really serving my highest good? And I'm not saying that paying bills aren't important. Yes, they're very important. But how can you do both? That's the real question. And I think a lot of us in society have been taught that it has to be either or. And there are ways to fit both sides of the coin, as they say.
Yeah. And I agree with you. I think that, we're also conditioned, especially as women, to always give, 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 do for others, right?
Yes.
Because that's what we do. But,
Yeah.
and that's what's expected. But then somewhere we like lose our sense of self
Yes.
and we got
Yeah.
to get that back.
I love that you brought that up too, because that really calls to what's called the martyrdom wound. And a lot of women are in that. And it means that their sense of service, quote unquote, service, is tied up and wrapped in around them sacrificing, overgiving, undercharging if you're an entrepreneur, and really putting yourself on the back burner essentially is all, when it's all said and done, I'm going to help everyone else, but I'm dying inside. I'm going to help everyone else, but I've gotten 5 hours sleep in the last 2 weeks. Do you know what I'm saying? That's the martyrdom wound, and that's part of the healing that's required when we go through this transition.
I had never heard of it referred to that way, but it makes complete sense when I hear you talk about it. Because,
Hmm.
like, I've seen other Facebook groups where there's a lot of that victim kind of mentality.
Sure.
Um, and it's part of the healing, right? So I don't want to crap on that either because it is part of our
Yeah.
healing process and everything else.
Right.
But I agree with you, there comes a point where you got to be like, okay, this is where the rubber meets the road. This is like, I can't continue like this.
No
Um,
way. Mhm.
so if somebody's at that point of saying, okay, I can't continue like this, but I don't know what to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
What what would you what would you recommend?
Well, I mean, I would start by doing something I just call an energy audit, and it really is what literally are you spending your time doing? How is it benefiting you and your family, if at all? And how can you shift it? So for example, for me, with my energy audit, like I was doing all these jobs and then I was, homeschooling the kids. I didn't want to give that up, but you have to write everything out. Like, what am I spending my time on and where is this going for me? How does this feel in my body? And you could also do like a star rating, kind of like you're rating stuff on Amazon, like a 1 to 5. Like, how much is this feeding your soul? 1 through 5. And when you start writing things out, it might be quite surprising what you're doing and how you may be spinning your wheels and not even thinking about it because at some point we have like blinders on. I need another job. I need to do this thing. I have to go over here. I have to do this. And for me, for example, when I was like, okay, I really need to get my business going, I was doing things that weren't, really beneficial to me financially, energetically. I had a few membership groups that I hadn't started charging anyone to be a member yet because I wanted to get the group going first before I actually charged people. I was running two of those free every week, every week. And what else was I doing? I was like, why am I doing that? So there are a lot of things like that. I was teaching classes in a physical location. This was kind of before Zoom was really a thing. It was 15 years ago. Um, and I was renting, so I was putting money out to rent these rooms, and I may or may not make my money back. It was just like, and I'm spending time away. Another thing that I did was I went to psychic fairs every weekend. Now, my kids were old enough to like take care of themselves at that point. I think they were maybe 11 and 9 or 12 and 10. I can't remember, but at some time I was doing psychic fairs every weekend, like hours away and so that I could provide and get things going. I was like, well, that really sucks. I don't like doing that. Like, but I was thinking like this is what I was supposed to do because of the business that I'm in. I was thinking those were really my only options. So I really had to think outside of the box.
Yeah, and I feel like we get in ruts, right? And once we're in that rut, coming out of that is can be very, very difficult. But I love what you said about it's kind of like pause and take your foot off the gas just so that you can, because it almost feels like the image that just came to my mind was you're driving around and you're lost, but you're like full speed on the accelerator, but you don't know where you're going. So you're like on the road to nowhere, basically.
Yeah, that's a trauma response, and that's when our nervous system is really in overdrive. And it is literally like I think Joe Dispenza said before, it's like having 1 foot on the gas and 1 foot on the brakes.
Yeah.
And life can be like that, as you
Yeah.
said, Alex.
Yeah.
Yes.
The foot on the gas is all of the external stuff that we're doing, and the foot on the brake is all of the internal stuff that we should be addressing so that we can really put all of our efforts in the gas on the
Right.
gas pedal.
It can also be like, I want to really scream right now, but I'm in the middle of a meeting or I'm doing my job, so I have to be quiet. I have to sit in my seat. I have to punch in. I have to punch out. And, it's just sort of this we're kind of trying to conform to societal rules, but it doesn't allow a space for us to heal ourselves. So that foot on the brake can also be us like, no, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. But I have to go, I have to go, I got stuff to do. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It's amazing the limitations and the impact of labels, right? And all of the shoulds that we have and all the shoulds that we
Hmm.
should be doing, right?
Yes,
Um,
yes.
I want to go back to what you talked about just before about role modeling, because you talked about
Okay.
this is not what I wanted to teach my kids.
Yes.
So, um, how how did you then shift from, I'm basically working myself into the ground to after your energy audit? What, like, how did you shift things so that you could start to shift not only how you showed up for yourself, but you
Hmm.
could then establish a better role model for your kids?
I love that. So what I did was with my energetic audit, when I sort of identified the things that, didn't feel like they were in alignment for me or that I wanted to shift or let go, or I was thinking, why the hell have I been doing this for this long? Then, of course, the next step to that is, okay, so what do I want to do? How do I want this to be? So learning what you don't want is great, but you need to move forward and figure out what that is. So for me, and I'm sure for many women, my divorce was very messy, very ugly, lots of lawyers, lots of arguments, lots of stuff. We don't need to get into that. I'm sure everyone's got their own stories. But it required a lot of healing on my part, a lot of healing. And I knew healers, and I went to healers, I went to therapists, I did, acupuncture, all the things. I did all the things, and what I found was that I was starting to attract women who were wanting to heal from trauma, like me, right? So I started attracting people who needed the medicine or the knowledge that I had just accumulated for myself and had gone through at that point. So what I started doing was, I was like, wait a second, I think there's something to this. I think, so in the beginning, I started doing packages. So my first course, I think, was an 8-week course, and it was for women who had trauma and needed to turn that into peace and empowerment. And I folded in my energy work, and I folded in neurohacking, and I folded in food, how food can nourish you, and I folded in all the stuff that I had been using for myself, made this beautiful, unique package. I actually had 2 therapists go through the course, which I thought was so freaking cool. And I love that because not only were people really, really touched by it, but at that point I knew there's something to this. So it's a transformational offer versus a session, creates a deeper impact on others. It helps others transform. And that's really what I wanted in my life. I wanted to make a big difference. I wanted to really help people. And that's when I got started. And as I grow, then my packages change. My focus changes, which is totally fine. And so, but that was my first. And that's where I was like, ooh, I like this. And I feel like that really, and I know I think when we go beyond the societal norms, meaning being a single mother working 70 hours a week and doing all the things, and saying, you know what, I'm just going to do my own thing. I'm just going to work for myself. I'm going to follow my dreams. As far as our children go, it's a great mirror for them that it's okay to do scary stuff so long as I go for it.
Yeah, and it kind of flies in the face of, what we hear, like, you got to go to college and you got to do all these things. And it's like, well, maybe not, because not everybody's destined to go to college. Not everybody's destined to become a plumber, right? So there is something for everyone, and we each have to find what that's going to be.
Right, right. Yeah, and that takes journaling too. I mean, I can walk your audience through an exercise if you like, but it just you have to sit down with your notebook, journal, and find some quiet time for yourself and really tap into what are my desires?
Mm,
What are my skills? Who do I want to help? How's this all look like in one big, if you're an entrepreneur, that would be.
yeah.
But or what do I want in my life? If I do work for someone, what is it that I really want to do? Because ultimately, we are spiritual beings in a meat sack, and we are hardwired for service and love. And
Until we
I
learn
find that,
otherwise.
yes, exactly. And it's often those moments like a really tough divorce that rip the rug out from under you and really make you see things through a different lens. and can be such an amazing blessing.
Yeah.
Like I'm so grateful for it. It sucked. It was really hard. It was awful. All the things. Um, but I don't think, in fact, I know I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now if I was still in that relationship.
Yeah. We wouldn't be
I
the
would.
people that we are if we hadn't gone through that
Right.
time. For sure.
Hmm.
For sure.
Absolutely.
So, what would you say was your biggest lesson from going through
Around.
your divorce?
Ooh. I would say the biggest lesson that I learned for myself for my divorce is was really how strong I am. Excuse me,
Mm,
how resilient I am. Because I had, and I think a lot of women do this. Again, this is a martyrdom thing, but I had willingly given up a lot of myself to be the wife and to be the mother. And so I had poured myself into this mold that I thought I should be. And when that mold was shattered, I didn't know who I was. I didn't know where I fit in. I didn't know what to do. And when those things come crashing down, oh my goodness, shit gets real fast.
and it's a major identity crisis, right? Because we've
Totally.
attached who we are to this one thing, and it could be to a couple of different things, right? Or
Right.
we might be attached to us as a wife, and that's the label, and that's what we embody. That goes away. Okay, I am now career woman, right? Because that's another
Exactly.
easy label to wear. And who
Yep.
we are without all of these things really becomes the foundation for who we can become moving forward.
I love that. And I've seen a I don't remember the name, I wish I did. A psychologist was given a talk once and he was talking about the dangers of those labels. Like I am a mother, for example. So then what happens when the child goes to college? Then there's like a major identity crisis, empty nester. You don't know what to do. You don't know who you are. Same thing. I am a wife. When that's gone, who am I? And it's really, as you said, boils down to who are you at the foundation. And for me, I'm a divine being in a meat sack, and I'm here to serve, and I'm here to love. And it's when we find that, it changes everything.
And it's so much broader, right? Like it's kind of, it's almost like limitless because then you can
Hmm.
let your imagination run free and decide, okay, so who do I want to be if I don't have to worry about all these things? And
Yeah,
that's where the
I
gold
love that you
is,
said that. Yeah, and I had a friend who she was my teacher and also became my friend and she was doing healings on me regularly and there were many, many times I was in her living room just crying and crying and crying and she said, Iena, you can do anything you want now. You can do anything you want. And I was like, that's what's so fucking scary. I don't know what to do. Like, who am I? What do I do? And she to her it was very simple. To me, I was like I don't even know where to start.
the image that just popped in my head was, when you go to a restaurant that has like 15 pages of choices and you're like, I
Yes.
I don't know. I can't pick,
And there's no
right?
pictures, like you can't
Uh,
even, yeah, no.
but when you get a menu that's like five different things, it's a lot easier. And in a way, that's what the labels help us to do is they
It's
keep
true.
us restricted to that little menu
Yes.
where there's so many more pages to the menu,
Yes. Yes. And so it takes some healing just to even be in that space where you can read that menu. It takes a lot of healing. And it's not a race and it's not a compare, everybody has their own time frame for this stuff. I mean, I would say there are some things that it took me probably 8 years to really clear. And it's been 15 years, and every once in a while, something will come up, and I'll be like, wow, there's a deeper layer. Because healing is like an onion, there's always like different layers. And there will be times where I think that box is check, good, moving on. Nope, there it is again. Okay. Yeah. So it's important for us to really take that lens and look back on ourselves too, because, we're our own responsibility. Like I said, nobody's coming to save us.
for sure. So, anything that you think is important for our heroines to know that we haven't talked about yet before we sign off?
I would just encourage your group to really stay true to yourself. And if you don't know who that is, that's where you need to start. The healing needs to begin with you just clearing that for sure and recognizing who it is that you are to your core, as you said. And everything else begins to, the more healing you do, the more clear things become, and you get like little breadcrumbs start forming in front of you, and you go, oh, okay, I'm gonna follow that, and then something else like, okay, yes, I got it. But yeah, start with yourself because again, with the martyrdom stuff, I think it's very common for us to fix everybody else and deal with everybody else. And a lot of women that I work with, that's kind of like their theme. They're like falling apart, but they run a rescue out of their home and they, volunteer at the elderly care center and they work this full-time job and but they're falling apart physically, mentally, and emotionally, but they don't see the contradiction between that because the truth is no matter who you want to serve, no matter who you want to help, no matter how you want to volunteer or spend your time and be of service, if you're not helping and healing yourself first, as they say in the airplanes, put the oxygen mask on yourself so you can help other people because you're not worth shit if you're not healthy, if you're not conscious. So you start from yourself and you can help others along the way in a bigger way.
Very true. Aina, thank you so much for spending this time with us. It was a pleasure having you.